More than 10,000 staff at three of biggest U.S. carmakers have started strike action, their union says. Work has been stopped at three plants owned by General Motors, GM, Ford and Stellantis. It came after labor contracts expired on Thursday night. The United Autoworkers Union, said the firms had not put forward acceptable offers. The fight threatens to trigger higher prices for buyers and major disruption for the motor industry giants. The UA's president Shawn Fain told the BBC it was now up to the companies to resolve the dispute. When they start taking care of their workers it will end, he said. The strike started at midnight Eastern Time, 4 o'clock GMT, at GM's Wentzville, Missouri midsize truck plant, Ford's Bronco plant in Michigan and the Jeep plant in Toledo, Ohio owned by Stellantis. The plants are critical to the production of some of the Detroit Three's most profitable vehicles. Other facilities will continue to operate, the UA said, but it did not rule out broadening the strikes beyond the initial three targets. With the deadline looming on Thursday, the White House said that President Joe Biden had spoken on the phone with Mr. Fain about the negotiations but provided no further details. The union had sought a 40% pay increase for its roughly 140,000 members over 4 years, noting a comparable rise in pay for company leaders. Other demands included a 4-day working week, the return of automatic pay increases tied to inflation, stricter limits on how long workers can be considered temporary staff who do not receive union benefits. The UA's proposals would more than double its U.S. labor costs, Ford said in a statement. Last month, 97% of the union's members voted to authorize a strike. Workers said the companies could afford to be more generous after years of record profits. "In my opinion, we are owed this," said Paul Rochka, who works in a Stellantis factory in Michigan making Jeep Grand Cherokees, the fourth generation in his family to work in the industry. Mr. Rochka said such jobs, which came with good healthcare and secure pensions, had provided an awesome living for his parents, a way of life that no longer feels possible today. The 31-year-old said he could not even afford to buy the car he makes. "We are still sitting on the back burner while these CEOs are making, upwards of $20 million a year," he said. Jim Farley, chief executive of Ford, told reporters earlier this week that he hoped to avoid a strike, but there was a limit to what the company was willing to concede. "We have to protect the sustainability of the company," he said. A 10-day strike could the three firms nearly $1 billion, £800 meters, and workers almost $900 million in lost wages, according to estimates by the Anderson Economic Group. It said the total hit to the economy could amount to more than $5 billion. Tyler Thiel, vice president at the firm, said a stoppage would have to be pretty lengthy to move the needle on national economic indicators. Coming into the strike, the supply of cars, which has been strained since the parts shortages of the pandemic, remains far lower than it has been in the past. Analysts said that could also mean a prolonged walkout leads to higher prices for buyers. Ford, GM and Stellantis together account for about 40% of U.S. car sales, though their share has dropped sharply over the last quarter of a century, as foreign firms such as Toyota make inroads. The last time the car industry faced a strike was in 2019, when workers at GM walked off the job for 6 weeks. GM worker Jessie Kelly, who participated in that walkout, said she had been trying to save up in anticipation of another stoppage. Participants are due to receive $500 in weekly strike benefits from the union, but that would still be significantly less than her wages, she said. "My strike bills will not cover my mortgage, let alone the grocery bills, let alone the lights and the everything else. So it is gonna definitely be a struggle," she said. Ms. Kelly, who lives near Detroit, said she supported the fight, despite the costs, noting that her pay has not kept pace with rising prices and is quickly eaten up by childcare and housing expenses. The 33-year-old said she had just 2 weeks of holiday a year, which she was typically forced to use for emergencies. "At the end of the day, we all want to work for a corporation that is making good money. We just want our fair share of that," she said. The CEOs are gonna keep paying themselves more and more money, and we're the only ones being left behind.